Hi, it's Bob here. Yeah, I have a great recipe for you today that I don't even think you'll believe because it's that simple and delicious. It's rice pudding. It's a common dessert from when I was a little kid all the way up to the present. Oh, what am I doing here? Well, I was out in my garden today, my vegetable garden, and the rhubarb is ready to harvest right now. It'll be ready to harvest for the next month. Anyway, it was growing great, so I picked some rhubarb, I washed it, I cut it up into little squares with some scissors, I put it in my pot here, I dumped in some strawberries, I didn't need any water, I added a little bit of sugar, a little bit of honey, a little bit of vanilla, and I cooked it for about 10 minutes on the stove, and I'm just tasting it because I'm going to stick this delicious concoction of sugar and sweetness on my rice pudding. So here goes the recipe. Rice pudding. Now, I've been married a long time. My wife Sue is over there doing the dishes after supper tonight because I'm going to be making the rice pudding, which we're going to eat later for dessert. And this is her mother's recipe. Her mother's long gone into another world, but we're still here with her rice pudding recipe. So before I start, I always get out all the things I need. So I have some cane sugar here. It's not just the crappy white sugar you find in the regular grocery store. This is cane sugar. Still not the best thing for your body, but I need it. And sometimes I just use a little bit of this pure maple syrup and not so much cane sugar, and maybe some of this organic wild honey from the farmer. It's got nothing in it except pure honey, so I might use those three things to make it sweet. And my milk today happens to be 2%. You can use 1%, 2%, 3% whole milk. You could use half and half or cream, whipping cream. You can use a combination thereof. It'll all have something to do with the creaminess at the end. A little vanilla for flavoring, and of course, remember, you gotta check the ingredients inside vanilla when you buy it. And this vanilla here has in it nothing that's going to kill you. But if you're really interested in knowing all about the history of vanilla, you can look that up on the internet. But this will do because you're only going to use a little bit. And salt, just salt and sweet go together, but a little bit of salt, not much will be used. And of course butter, well, butter makes the world go round. And butter will not give you a heart attack, so don't believe that if you read that anywhere. And of course I'm using arborio rice, which is a short grain rice. It's grown in the Po Valley in northern Italy and in California too. Anyway, so it's a short grain rice, which makes the rice pudding, it has more starch than the long grain rice, so it makes it chewier and creamier. So this is a medium to a short grain. And I've got some of these raisins, the gold ones, and the other ones. These are, what are they called? The Thompson and the, what are the gold ones, Sue?
Oh, just golden raisins.
Golden raisins. So a combination of both of those. And I don't have to put them in water to plump them up before I add them to the pudding. And I'm not going to add them to the pudding till the end. But the pudding, the hot rice and milk will make these things plump and delicious, so I don't have to pre-plump them. And I've got more milk here, and of course a little bit of cinnamon down here for flavoring too. So I got the vanilla and the cinnamon for flavoring. And more milk, and I've got a sieve, because I have to wash my rice first. And a nice clay bowl that I'm going to use to cook it in. And I'm going to cook it in the oven, not on top of the stove like most people. But I said it was simple. And I mean that. If you really don't want to remember all this, all you need is maybe a cup of rice at the most and 4 cups of milk and maybe a half a cup of sugar to sweeten it up, and throw that in the oven and cook it at 350 degrees for about an hour, and stir it every once in a while and add a little bit more milk at the end when you throw in your raisins if you want to put raisins in it, and a little bit of cinnamon, and you're done. That's how easy this is. So let's just see what happens. So I just took a piece of wax paper and I've got some butter here, and the first thing I'm going to do is take a clump of it and I'm going to put butter in my clay pot here. And it doesn't matter what kind of a pot you use as long as you can put it in the oven. You can still butter it, but I just like the clay one. So this is a pampered chef. That's why it looks a little dirty, but it's not dirty. Anyway, so a little bit of butter going on there. I might use some more butter later. And then I'm going to take my rice. Now remember, I'm going to use about 4 cups of milk. So I only need about a half a cup to a cup of rice. That's not much rice. But I don't have any measuring spoons or measuring cups because I don't measure because I have made this so many times. So I'm going to take my half a cup, and my wife's watching, and that's about a half a cup, maybe a cup. Let me see. There's a cup of rice, right, Sue? Right. So
how much rice are you making?
4 cups of. Well, never mind. So I know what I'm doing. So there's the rice. I just take it over here to the sink. I turn on the cold water and I wash it. There, it's washed. And so I don't drip it all over the floor. I'll come back over here where you can see better. And I'm going to put my milk. So one of these bags of milk, I need 4 cups. So one of these bags of milk is about 2 cups. So here's a bag with a little missing, so that's 2 cups. So I put 2 cups of milk in the pot, bowl, whatever you want to call it, 2 cups. All right, and then I'm going to take 2 more cups. I need a pair of scissors. And I don't think I'll put all of the milk in. Remember before? I think I'll just put 3 cups in and save a little bit for the end. Now remember, if I wanted to use some half and half, I could to make it a little creamier. And I could add a little bit of butter to the 2% or the 3% or the 1% milk. Whatever, but it's basically rice and milk. And then I'm going to use some sugar. Now if I use the maple syrup, then I don't want the vanilla because those are 2 different flavors. So I think I'll leave the maple syrup out and I think I'll use some of the sugar. And I've got a cup in here. Just take you only need about a half a cup. So you got 4 cups of milk, 3 in there now, and a half a cup of rice. Remember, short grain, medium grain, arborio rice. From Italy, and you know, give or take, and then there's a half a cup of sugar. But I have a sweet tooth, so I'll just put another little bit more in there, right? And if I go, salt. Yes, why do you put salt in? Well, salt, believe it or not, will bring out the flavor of the rice, and I don't put much in, as you can see, maybe not even half a teaspoon. And let's put the rice in there. Try not to make too much of a mess. Right, and take that back to the sink. So we've got butter coating the pan. We've washed the rice. It's about a half a cup. We put about 3 cups of milk in, half a cup of sugar. Stir it up. A little bit of salt. Just stir it up. A lot of people make rice pudding on top of the stove. It's harder. You gotta watch it. You can't get it too hot too fast. They add eggs. They do all kinds of things to it. We don't need to do all that. This is gonna be delicious. Stir it up a little bit. I've preheated the oven over here to 350. I put it in the middle. Not at the top, not at the bottom, in the middle. Done. See you later. Yep, it's in there. Now I'll come back every once in a while and I'll stir it. And as it starts to thicken up in there, then I add the rest of the milk, I add my raisins, I add my cinnamon, and then within 10 minutes the thing's done. And you don't want it to get too thick, and you don't want it to be too wet and swishy and wishy. You want it to be just right. And if you make this thing the way I have made it, a million times, it'll be perfect. And then we'll show you how we fancy it up and use that rhubarb. So it's been about 25 minutes. Do a little stirring here. It's not ready for raisins yet or any more milk. I'll check it in another 15 minutes, see how it's doing. You don't want to leave the oven open too long. It's time to stir it up again, and you can see that the rice is starting to clump together and get thicker. But 350. It's still not ready. For the next step, we'll get back to it. So, it's starting to thicken up a little bit. Not quite yet for the last cup of milk, but it's ready for the raisins. So I'll just take some of these golden raisins and put them in. And you can put as many in as you want, but you don't want that many. And then some of these Thompson raisins, which are a different color and they're a little bit bigger, I think. Maybe they're not. Anyway, put some of them in. Give them a chance to cook a little bit and stir them around a bit. We won't put any cinnamon or extra milk in there yet. Okay, another 10 minutes and then we'll check it again. It's almost been an hour. So I think it's ready for the last cup of milk and maybe a little bit of cinnamon. And so we'll put in our last cup of milk here.
That's not milk.
Well, close enough. And a little bit of cinnamon. A little bit of cinnamon. And a little bit of vanilla. And cinnamon, by the way, is a superfood. It's a super healthy food. And so we'll stir it in there a bit. And then we'll just let it do its thing.
How much longer, Bob?
I'd say about 10 minutes. And then it'll be done. So, it'll thicken up now. There you go. This is what the finished product looks like. That consistency. You might think it's a little runny, but it isn't, because when it starts to cool down, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And that took an hour. In fact, a little bit more than an hour to do that. But it wasn't hard. So we'll just take it out of the oven and we'll let it sit around for a while, and then we'll show you what it looks like with a little bit of topping. Well, it's time to try it. So we've got the rice pudding, and it's this consistency now. See how it cooled down a little bit and got thick? And we've got our rhubarb out of the garden, picked today with strawberries, even though the strawberries were frozen. And then we have somebody here munching away. What do you think?
Let me try it. It's good, but it's burning my mouth.
Oh, because you have something wrong with your mouth?
No, because it's hot.
Oh, it's hot. But it's good?
Yeah.
Is it too sweet or not sweet enough or what?
No, it's good. It's perfect.
What about the consistency?
Seems fine.
All right, not too runny?
Not too runny.
Not too thick?
Not too thick, not
And
too
it'll
runny.
be thicker tomorrow. And what about the rhubarb? How does that taste?
Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10?
11.
11 out of 10. Okay. So remember, this is my wife's mother's recipe from 100 years ago. It's simple. It's just a half a cup of rice, medium grain, short grain rice, not long grain. That takes a lot longer to cook, and you could use long grain rice for cabbage rolls, but not for pudding. And so you got about a half a cup, maybe a little more of that rice added to the 4 cups of milk or so, and about a half a cup of sugar and raisins, and that's about it, unless you want to add more fattening things. All right.